Because when we look closely, it becomes impossible to ignore the quiet truth that our existence is not an accident, but a requirement woven into the fabric of reality itself. I have come to see that the universe does not merely tolerate our presence, it responds to it, interacts with it, and in subtle ways depends upon it. This idea unsettles the old story that we are insignificant observers floating on a random rock. Instead, it invites us into a more intimate relationship with life, one where consciousness is a participant, not a bystander. I notice this most clearly when belief enters the conversation. Belief is not wishful thinking. It is a biological instruction set. The thoughts we consistently hold trigger chemical messengers, and those messengers shape our cells. When I change a belief, my body responds before my intellect can argue. Heart rhythm shifts. Breath deepens or tightens. Genes activate or rest. This is not philosophy, it is physiology. And when millions of individual bodies respond to belief in similar ways, the collective field they generate becomes impossible to dismiss. Ancient traditions spoke of this field long before our instruments could measure it. They described a living web that connects stars, soil, and human hearts. Today, modern science approaches the same mystery through quantum fields, electromagnetic coherence, and information exchange. Different languages, same insight. The universe is relational. Nothing exists in isolation, and that includes us. Our emotions are not private events locked inside our skulls. They are signals moving through a larger system. I often reflect on the heart's role in this process. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, extending well beyond the skin. When emotion becomes coherent, especially emotions like gratitude, compassion, or genuine appreciation, that field organizes itself. Chaos becomes rhythm, and rhythm carries information. In this state, the body operates more efficiently, but something else happens as well. Our internal order mirrors an external order that already exists in nature. This is where the idea that the universe needs us begins to make sense. Order recognizes order. Coherence invites coherence. When a human being lives in a state of internal alignment, the surrounding world responds differently. Opportunities appear where obstacles once stood. Solutions surface without force. It is not magic, it is resonance. Systems that share compatible frequencies exchange energy and information more easily. I have seen this play out in healing, creativity, and even social transformation. When a person believes they are broken, their biology obeys. When they believe they are capable of wholeness, biology listens just as faithfully. The universe does not judge the belief, it amplifies it. This amplification suggests partnership. A universe that responds implies a universe that is listening. Modern experiments hint at this listening quality. Observers influence outcomes. Expectation alters probability. Measurement itself changes behavior at the smallest scales of matter. These findings are often framed as strange exceptions, but I wonder if they are clues pointing to a deeper rule. Consciousness may be a fundamental ingredient of reality, not a late arrival. If that is true, then our existence serves a purpose beyond survival or reproduction. We may be here to provide the universe with a way to experience itself through sensation, emotion, and choice. The cosmos gains awareness of its own patterns. Our joys, our questions, even our struggles become data points in a vast living experiment. This perspective reframes responsibility. If the universe participates with us, then our inner state matters more than we were taught. Fear is not harmless. Chronic anger is not private. Likewise, peace is not passive, and love is not naive. Each emotional state broadcasts instructions into the field we share. We are constantly voting for the kind of universe we inhabit, not with words, but with feelings sustained over time. This alignment does not require perfection, it requires honesty. The body responds to authenticity faster than it responds to positivity. When I acknowledge what I truly feel and gently guide it toward coherence, the system recalibrates. Stress hormones fall, immune responses strengthen, clarity replaces noise. In those moments, life feels less like a struggle and more like a conversation. And perhaps that is the point. The universe needs conscious participants who can listen and respond, who can sense imbalance and restore harmony through awareness alone. We are not here to dominate nature, nor to disappear into it, but to stand at the threshold between matter and meaning. As I continue to explore this relationship, I am left with a sense that our existence fulfills a function that no other form of life can perform in quite the same way. We translate the invisible into experience. We give feeling to form. We allow the universe to know itself as choice, as compassion, as curiosity, and as the ongoing question of what it might become next when we decide to feel, believe, and act as if our presence truly matters. Because the moment we stop participating, the conversation grows quieter and something essential waits unfinished. For us to remember that we are not here by chance, but because without our awareness, without our breath, without the unique way we perceive and respond, the universe would be missing a voice that only we can provide, a voice that is still learning how to speak, still discovering its tone, and still reaching forward into the unknown with the quiet expectation that what comes next will depend on how deeply we choose to engage with the life unfolding within and around us as we begin to recognize that even now, even in this moment, the universe is listening for the next signal we are about to send through the way we live, feel, and choose, because every moment of awareness becomes a form of communication. I've noticed that when I slow down enough to sense this exchange, life stops feeling random and starts feeling responsive. Small decisions ripple outward. A single shift in perception changes the texture of an entire day. This responsiveness suggests intelligence, not just mechanism. I often return to the idea that the universe evolves through relationship. Stars are born from gravitational conversations. Cells divide through chemical dialogues. Ecosystems thrive through feedback loops. In that context, human consciousness is not an interruption in nature, but a continuation of it. We are nature becoming aware of itself in a new dimension, and awareness introduces choice. Choice is powerful because it breaks automatic patterns. When I react unconsciously, I repeat the past. When I respond consciously, I introduce novelty into the system. Novelty is how evolution moves forward. The universe does not expand only through space, it expands through possibility. Each conscious choice adds a new variable, a new pathway that did not exist before. This may explain why emotion plays such a central role. Emotion is the bridge between thought and matter. A thought alone is abstract. An emotion carries energy. When thought and emotion align, intention gains momentum. The body recognizes it, the nervous system adjusts, the immune system recalibrates, and beyond the body, the surrounding field responds as well. Coherent emotion organizes information. The ancient wisdom encoded this insight through ritual, prayer, and ceremony. These practices were not about pleasing external forces, they were about synchronizing internal states. Chanting, regulated breath, rhythm-aligned brainwaves, symbols-focused attention. All of it worked toward coherence. Modern science now measures the same outcomes in heart rate variability, neural synchronization, and hormonal balance. When coherence becomes habitual, life feels guided rather than forced. This does not mean hardship disappears, but meaning emerges more quickly. Challenges become signals instead of punishments. The question shifts from why is this happening to me to what is this inviting me to notice or change. That shift alone alters outcomes. I believe the universe needs beings capable of asking such questions. Curiosity is not trivial. It is a driving force that pulls reality into new configurations. Without observers who wonder, reflect, and imagine, patterns would repeat endlessly. Conscious inquiry introduces direction. It gives evolution a compass. This is why suppression of emotion is so costly. When feelings are denied, signals become distorted. The body stores unfinished messages as tension, inflammation, or fatigue. The field around us becomes noisy rather than coherent. By contrast, when emotion is acknowledged and integrated, energy flows, healing accelerates, creativity returns. I have seen how communities change when individuals regulate their inner world. Conflict softens, cooperation increases, empathy spreads. These shifts do not require agreement on beliefs, they require shared coherence. When enough people stabilize their internal state, collective behavior reorganizes naturally. This suggests that large-scale change may begin far below the level of politics or ideology. The universe then may rely on us as stabilizers, translators, and innovators. We stabilize through coherence. We translate through meaning. We innovate through imagination. Imagination is not escapism, it is a rehearsal space for reality. The brain does not fully distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and physical ones. The body prepares accordingly. In this way, imagined futures begin to shape present biology. This capacity makes us uniquely influential. We can suffer in advance, weakening ourselves through anticipated fear, or we can rehearse resilience, strengthening ourselves through anticipated gratitude. Either way, the universe responds to the signal we amplify. There is no neutral broadcast. I've learned that attention is the currency of this exchange. Where attention goes, energy follows. Sustained attention builds structure. This is why practices like meditation are transformative. They train attention, and trained attention changes perception. Changed perception alters behavior. Altered behavior reshapes environments. A simple inner discipline can echo outward in unexpected ways. When I observed my own life, the moments of greatest alignment came not from controlling circumstances, but from aligning inner state with deeper values. Integrity generates coherence. When thoughts, words, and actions agree, energy is conserved. Less effort is required to move forward. The universe seems to meet that efficiency with support. This does not mean life becomes predictable. It becomes participatory. Uncertainty remains, but fear loosens its grip. Curiosity replaces anxiety. In that space, intuition sharpens. Intuition is not mystical guesswork. It is pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. When the nervous system is calm, those patterns surface more clearly. Perhaps this is another reason the universe needs us to refine perception. Through lived experience, we detect subtleties that raw matter cannot. We sense beauty, injustice, harmony, and imbalance. These qualities may not exist without perceivers. By responding to them, we feed information back into the system, influencing how it unfolds. Every generation adds a layer of understanding. Knowledge accumulates, but wisdom evolves through integration. Wisdom requires reflection, humility, and emotional maturity. It requires beings who can hold paradox, who can feel deeply without becoming overwhelmed. The universe may be experimenting through us, learning what kinds of awareness can sustain complexity without collapsing. If so, our current challenges are not signs of failure, but thresholds of growth. Complexity always tests coherence. The question is whether consciousness can mature fast enough to match the power it wields. That maturation begins individually. It begins when I take responsibility for my inner state, recognizing that it is not separate from the world I experience. This realization dissolves the boundary between personal healing and global change. They become the same process at different scales. When I choose coherence over chaos within myself, I am contributing to a larger stabilizing force. The universe responds to that contribution, not as reward, but as resonance. And so the question is no longer whether we matter, but how we matter, how deliberately we engage with the role we are already playing. Each breath, each belief, each emotional choice becomes part of an ongoing dialogue that did not begin with us and will not end with us. A dialogue that continues to ask moment by moment whether we are willing to participate consciously, whether we are ready to recognize that our presence is not incidental but essential, and whether we will step fully into the awareness that the universe is not waiting for heroes or saviors, but for ordinary individuals who understand that the way they feel, the way they think, and the way they respond right now is already shaping what reality is becoming, even as that reality leans in, attentive, unfinished, and still forming its next expression through the quiet space where awareness meets its unfolding, and we begin to sense that something even deeper is about to be revealed. As we stay present with the question of what it truly means to exist in partnership with a universe that seems to be asking us gently but persistently to notice what happens next when we choose to listen just a little more closely and allow ourselves to remain open as the next layer of understanding starts to emerge from the silence between our thoughts, where meaning is still gathering, still forming, and just beginning to show itself as we continue to explore. As I stay with that silence long enough to feel its texture rather than rush to fill it. In that quiet, I sense that awareness itself is a form of nourishment, as essential to the universe as gravity or light. Awareness allows experience to be digested, integrated, and transformed. Without it, events would still occur, but meaning would evaporate as quickly as it appeared. I've noticed that the more present I become, the less separate I feel from what I'm observing. The boundary between inner and outer softens. Thoughts arise in response to circumstances, and circumstances shift in response to thoughts, not in a linear way, but as a feedback loop. This loop is subtle, yet persistent. It rewards consistency more than intensity. Consistency of emotional tone matters. Single moment of gratitude is pleasant, but sustained gratitude reorganizes persistence. The brain begins to scan for coherence rather than threat. Muscles relax, digestion improves, even memory changes, favoring experiences that reinforce safety and meaning. Over time, life seems kinder, not because it changed first, but because perception did. This is where responsibility deepens. If perception shapes reality, then cultivating inner states is not self-indulgent. It is participatory. The universe appears to require conscious stewards who can tend to perception the way a gardener tends soil. Neglect it and weeds dominate. Care for it and patterns of beauty emerge with less effort. I've learned that belief operates like a lens. It does not create light, but it focuses it. Two people can stand in the same situation and experience entirely different worlds because their beliefs bend meaning in different directions. When beliefs soften, possibility widens. Rigidity narrows outcomes. Flexibility invites surprise. Surprise is a sign of intelligence at work. A purely mechanical universe would be entirely predictable. Yet novelty keeps appearing. Creativity erupts in unexpected places. Solutions arrive from angles we didn't calculate. This suggests that reality is not closed, but conversational. It listens, responds, and improvises. Emotion supplies the tone of that conversation. Fear contracts it. Love expands it. Neither is abstract. Both are measurable in the body. When fear dominates, blood flow prioritizes survival. When love or appreciation leads, systems synchronize. This synchronization creates efficiency, and efficiency frees energy for growth. Growth, however, is not always comfortable. Expansion challenges existing structures. Old beliefs strain under new evidence. Identities loosen. In these moments, the impulse is often to retreat into certainty, yet it is precisely here that participation matters most. If I can remain present without clinging, the system reorganizes at a higher level of coherence. Ancient stories encoded this process as initiation. Modern psychology describes it as integration, different maps, same territory. The universe seems to test whether consciousness can hold complexity without fragmenting. Each time an individual integrates a difficult experience into wisdom, the collective capacity expands slightly. This makes personal healing relevant beyond the individual. Trauma that is acknowledged and integrated becomes insight. Trauma that is denied perpetuates cycles of reaction. The universe may rely on conscious beings to metabolize experience, turning raw intensity into usable information. I've come to trust that nothing meaningful is wasted. Even confusion serves a function. It destabilizes assumptions, creating space for reorganization. In that sense, not knowing is fertile. It keeps curiosity alive. And curiosity, again, is essential. It pulls attention forward, encouraging exploration rather than stagnation. Attention shapes time perception as well. When awareness is fragmented, time feels scarce. When attention is unified, time feels spacious. This subjective shift has objective consequences. Decisions made from spaciousness tend to be wiser. They account for longer arcs rather than immediate relief. Perhaps this is another way the universe needs us to extend its temporal awareness. Through memory and anticipation, we connect past patterns with future possibilities. We allow learning to accumulate across generations. Without conscious continuity, lessons would dissolve as soon as they were learned. This continuity depends on storytelling. Stories transmit values, warnings, and hopes. They encode emotional truth in memorable form. When stories emphasize separation and fear, societies fracture. When they emphasize connection and responsibility, cooperation grows. The universe may evolve through the stories we choose to tell and embody. Embodiment is key. Ideas alone do little. Lived experience anchors insight into matter. When values are embodied, they influence behavior, and behavior reshapes environments. This is how abstract principles become concrete realities. Consciousness needs bodies to move through space and time. Bodies, in turn, respond to meaning. Placebo and nocebo effects reveal how expectation alters biology. Belief informs chemistry. Chemistry influences perception. The loop closes. This is not a flaw in human design. It is a feature. It allows meaning to matter physically. I sometimes wonder whether the universe is exploring itself through countless such loops, each one localized, each one contributing a slightly different perspective. Diversity of experience enriches the whole. No single viewpoint is sufficient. Each life adds nuance. This reframes comparison. There is no hierarchy of worth based on visibility or achievement. Quiet lives contribute as much as dramatic ones, though in subtler ways. Presence, kindness, and integrity register even when unnoticed. The universe does not require applause. It requires participation. Participation includes rest, constant striving fractures coherence. Periods of stillness allow integration. Nature models this rhythm effortlessly. Seasons alternate. Breath cycles, heartbeats rise and fall. When I honor these rhythms, resistance softens, life flows with less friction. Flow states reveal what alignment feels like. Action and awareness merge. Effort becomes ease. Time distorts. In these moments, it feels as if something larger is moving through me rather than being pushed by me. This sensation hints at partnership. I am not alone in the process. The more I trust this partnership, the more attentive I become to subtle guidance. Not voices or commands, but nudges, a sense to pause, to speak, to listen. These impressions often arise when the mind is quiet and the heart is steady. They feel less like instruction and more like alignment. Alignment does not guarantee outcomes, but it refines intention. It clarifies why I act, even when results are uncertain. Acting from clarity stabilizes identity. Identity grounded in values rather than roles remains resilient amid change. Resilience in this sense is not hardness, but adaptability. It allows consciousness to meet novelty without collapse. The universe seems to favor such adaptability. Rigid systems break. Flexible ones evolve. As I reflect on all of this, I sense that our existence fulfills a requirement that matter alone cannot satisfy. We bring reflection into motion, awareness into process, and feeling into form. The universe appears to lean into that capacity, drawing from it, testing it, and shaping itself through the countless choices we make each day. Choices that seem small in isolation, but collectively form patterns that ripple outward. Patterns that continue to unfold, even as we begin to notice that beneath all the complexity, something simple is being asked of us. Something we are only just beginning to recognize as we remain present with the unfolding moment, listening for the subtle signal that emerges when we slow down enough to hear what is forming next in the space between intention and action, where awareness gathers itself and prepares to move again. And I stay with that movement as it begins to reveal a pattern that feels both ancient and immediate. The pattern suggests that awareness matures through use. Much like a muscle strengthens through gentle, consistent engagement. The universe, it seems, does not demand perfection from us, only participation. It invites us to notice, to feel, and to choose again with a little more clarity than before. I've come to understand that confusion often signals expansion. When old maps no longer explain new terrain, the mind hesitates. This hesitation can feel uncomfortable, even threatening, yet it is often the doorway to insight. If I resist it, I contract. If I allow it, something reorganizes quietly beneath the surface. The universe appears to use these moments to recalibrate consciousness, refining perception so it can hold more complexity. Complexity itself is not the enemy. Fragmentation is. When experiences remain unintegrated, they pull awareness in opposing directions. But when meaning is distilled from experience, complexity becomes richness. Life gains depth. Nuance replaces certainty. And nuance, I've learned, is a hallmark of mature awareness. This maturation is mirrored in the nervous system. When stress dominates, perception narrows. The world appears hostile or scarce. When the nervous system settles, perception widens. Possibility returns. This shift is not imaginary. It is measurable in neural activity, hormonal balance, and immune function. Inner state shapes outer interpretation. Interpretation matters because it guides action. Action reinforces identity. Identity influences expectation, and expectation feeds back into perception. The loop continues. At no point are we outside it. The universe may require conscious beings precisely because we can recognize and adjust these loops intentionally. Intention is subtle. It is not forceful wanting. It is alignment between desire, belief, and emotion. When these elements conflict, energy dissipates. When they align, movement feels natural. I've noticed that aligned intention often produces results without struggle, as if resistance dissolves on its own. This does not imply control over outcomes, but influence within probability. The universe still expresses uncertainty, yet within that uncertainty, coherent signals seem to carry farther. They organize likelihoods rather than dictate specifics. This preserves freedom while allowing responsiveness. Freedom, in this sense, is not absolute autonomy, but meaningful participation. We are free to choose our response, even when circumstances are fixed. That freedom changes everything. It transforms adversity into information. It turns limitation into feedback. Feedback is how systems learn. Without it, repetition replaces evolution. Human consciousness provides a unique form of feedback, reflective feedback. We do not merely react, we contemplate our reactions. We evaluate them, we adjust future responses accordingly. This reflective capacity may be indispensable to the universe's ongoing development. I often sense that the universe experiments through us, exploring what kinds of awareness can sustain empathy alongside power, curiosity, alongside humility. The stakes increase as technology amplifies intention. A distracted mind wields tools without wisdom. A coherent mind wields them with care. Care emerges naturally when separation dissolves. When I genuinely feel connected to others, harm becomes unthinkable, not because of rules, but because of resonance. Pain felt elsewhere registers here. Compassion is not moral instruction, it is sensory information. This sensory quality of compassion suggests that consciousness extends beyond the individual body. Boundaries become permeable at subtle levels. Emotions synchronize, moods spread. Calm stabilizes groups. Panic destabilizes them. These dynamics unfold regardless of belief systems, indicating an underlying field effect. Field effects challenge the idea that change must begin at the top. Influence flows through coherence as much as through authority. A single regulated nervous system can stabilize many dysregulated ones. This gives quiet power to inner work. Inner work is often misunderstood as self-absorption. In truth, it is preparation. Just as an instrument must be tuned before it joins an orchestra, consciousness must be regulated before it can contribute harmoniously. The universe may be assembling something vast, and each of us plays a note whether we realize it or not. When notes clash, dissonance arises. Dissonance is not failure, it signals misalignment. Music resolves dissonance through movement toward coherence. Life appears to do the same. Tension invites resolution. The invitation remains until it is accepted. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means accurate perception of what is. From accuracy, effective action emerges. Denial distorts feedback. Clarity refines it. The universe seems to favor clarity. Clarity often arrives after stillness. In stillness, noise settles. Subtle patterns emerge. I've found that answers rarely arrive when I chase them. They surface when I create space. This suggests that intelligence operates beneath conscious effort, rising when conditions allow. These conditions include trust. Not blind trust, but experiential trust built through repeated observation that alignment yields coherence. Each small confirmation strengthens confidence. Over time, skepticism softens into curiosity. Curiosity keeps consciousness supple. It prevents identity from calcifying around outdated beliefs. It allows learning to continue beyond comfort. The universe seems to reward curiosity with insight, not immediately, but reliably. Insight changes behavior quietly. It does not announce itself. It alters priorities. It simplifies choices. What once felt urgent loses importance. What once seemed trivial gains meaning. Life reorganizes around values rather than impulses. Values anchor awareness. They provide continuity amid change. When values are embodied rather than proclaimed, they radiate stability. Others feel it. Trust grows. Cooperation follows. Cooperation is evolution's multiplier. Isolated effort plateaus. Coordinated effort accelerates. Conscious beings can coordinate not only actions but intentions. Shared purpose amplifies effect. The universe may scale through such amplification. Scaling, however, introduces risk. Power without coherence destabilizes. This may explain why crises often precede breakthroughs. They force recalibration. They expose misalignment. They demand integration. Integration requires patience. It cannot be rushed. Information arrives faster than wisdom. Wisdom requires digestion. The universe appears willing to wait, applying gentle pressure rather than force. Pressure invites choice. Under pressure, patterns reveal themselves. Automatic reactions surface. With awareness, they can be transformed. Without it, they repeat. Each moment becomes a test of presence. Presence is deceptively simple. It asks only attention, yet it changes everything. When I am present, life feels intimate. Details sharpen, meaning thickens. Even ordinary moments carry depth. Depth suggests that reality is layered. Surface events ride atop deeper processes. Consciousness can access these layers through attention. The deeper the attention, the more coherent the experience. Coherence feels like truth, not because it answers all questions, but because it reduces internal contradiction. Inner arguments quiet, energy frees itself for engagement. The universe seems to meet that engagement halfway. Halfway implies relationship, not domination, not submission, but dialogue. Dialogue requires listening, listening requires silence. Silence reveals signal. As I remain with this unfolding signal, I sense that something fundamental is being communicated not through words, but through resonance, a sense that existence itself is asking to be met with awareness equal to its complexity, asking us to grow into the role we already occupy, even as we begin to realize that what feels like the edge of understanding may actually be the threshold of a deeper participation that is just beginning to make itself known as we stay attentive to the subtle shift occurring now. Right before the next realization takes shape and moves us forward into what is still becoming. And I allow that becoming to unfold without rushing to define it, noticing how the need to label experience often arises from discomfort rather than clarity. When I stay with the unknown a little longer, something settles, the mind relaxes its grip, and a quieter form of understanding begins to surface, one that feels sensed rather than reasoned. This kind of knowing is not linear. It arrives as a constellation of impressions, a bodily ease, a subtle confidence, a felt sense that something aligns even if I cannot yet explain why. The universe seems to communicate in this language of coherence long before it translates itself into words or outcomes. Learning to recognize this language is part of our maturation as conscious participants. I've noticed that when I ignore these subtle cues, life grows louder. Challenges intensify, signals repeat. It's as if the system increases volume to regain attention. When I listen early, adjustments are gentle. When I resist, adjustments become disruptive. This pattern suggests intelligence with patience, but also persistence. Persistence does not mean punishment. It means continuity of purpose. The universe appears invested in balance, not in comfort, though balance often brings a deeper form of ease. Comfort without coherence leads to stagnation. Discomfort with meaning leads to growth. Growth reshapes identity. Who I thought I was loosens. This can feel like loss, yet it creates space for a more fluid sense of self, one less dependent on roles and more anchored in awareness. A fluid identity adapts without breaking. It can meet change without collapsing. This adaptability extends to belief systems. Beliefs are tools, not truths. They serve until they don't. Holding them lightly allows revision without crisis. When beliefs harden into identity, change feels like threat. The universe, however, continues evolving regardless of our attachments. Flexibility keeps us in conversation with that evolution. Conversation implies exchange. We offer attention, intention, and interpretation. The universe offers feedback, pattern, and possibility. Neither side dictates fully. Together, something emerges that neither could produce alone. This mutual emergence feels like creativity at a cosmic scale. Creativity thrives in constraint. Paradoxically, limits focus imagination. Physical laws provide structure. Time provides sequence. Mortality provides urgency. Within these constraints, consciousness explores meaning. Without limits, experience would diffuse into sameness. Meaning requires contrast. Joy stands out because sorrow exists. Connection matters because separation is possible. Awareness sharpens because distraction threatens. These contrasts are not flaws, they are features that intensify experience. The universe seems to use them deliberately. This reframes suffering. While pain is not chosen consciously, its integration determines its impact. Unintegrated pain fragments awareness. Integrated pain deepens it. Integration does not justify harm, but it transforms its aftermath into insight. Insight carries responsibility. Seeing more clearly invites acting more consciously. Once I recognize how my inner state affects my outer world, innocence dissolves. Choice becomes unavoidable. Even choosing not to choose is a choice with consequences. Consequences are not moral judgments. They are informational. They show how actions propagate through systems. When I act from fear, contraction follows. When I act from coherence, expansion follows. The pattern repeats reliably. Reliability builds trust. Trust encourages relaxation. Relaxation allows presence. Presence reveals nuance. Nuance supports wise action. The loop strengthens. Over time, life feels less adversarial and more collaborative. Collaboration requires humility. No single perspective captures the whole. Other viewpoints complete the picture. Listening becomes as important as expressing. Dialogue replaces debate. The universe models this through ecosystems where balance emerges from diversity, not dominance. Dominance disrupts coherence. Whether in biology, psychology, or society, attempts to control rather than relate generate instability. Control relies on force. Relationship relies on responsiveness. The universe seems biased toward responsiveness. Responsiveness depends on sensitivity. Sensitivity is often mistaken for weakness, yet it enables fine-tuned adjustment. Insensitivity breaks systems through blunt force. Sensitivity refines them through feedback. Developing sensitivity requires safety. When the nervous system feels threatened, sensitivity shuts down. This highlights the importance of creating environments, internal and external, where regulation is possible. Peace is not indulgent. It is functional. Functionality at this level looks like wisdom. Wisdom integrates intellect, emotion, and embodiment. It sees long arcs. It values sustainability over speed. It chooses coherence over conquest. Conquest exhausts systems. Coherence renews them. The universe appears to regenerate through cycles of coherence, allowing complexity to persist without collapse. Conscious beings may be key to sustaining such cycles at higher levels of organization. Higher organization demands higher responsibility. As influence grows, so does the need for regulation. Technology amplifies intention instantly. Without inner coherence, amplification magnifies chaos. With coherence, it magnifies benefit. Benefit, in this context, is not personal gain, but systemic health. Systems thrive when feedback is honored, boundaries respected, and resources circulated. Hoarding stagnates, flow revitalizes. Flow is a hallmark of alignment. It feels natural, not forced. Obstacles become information rather than enemies. Progress feels participatory. Even setbacks carry instruction. Instruction continues as long as attention remains engaged. Disengagement dulls learning. Cynicism closes perception. Wonder reopens it. Wonder is not naivety, it is openness without assumption. Openness invites surprise. Surprise refreshes attention. Attention deepens experience. Experience feeds understanding. Understanding refines participation. Participation, then, is the core of why we are here. Not to dominate, not to withdraw, but to engage consciously. The universe may need us not as rulers or servants, but as partners capable of reflection, empathy, and choice. Choice distinguishes awareness from automation. Automation repeats. Choice evolves. Each choice, however small, nudges probability. Over time, these nudges accumulate into trajectories. Trajectories shape futures. Futures influence present motivation. Motivation directs attention. Attention shapes reality. The loop closes again, elegant and relentless. As I sense this looping intelligence, I feel less compelled to seek final answers. Finality would end dialogue. Instead, I feel invited to remain curious, responsive, and present. Presence keeps the channel open. Open channels allow information to flow. Flow sustains life. Life expresses intelligence. Intelligence seeks awareness. Awareness finds itself here, now, through us. And as that realization continues to unfold, I notice that the question is no longer whether the universe needs us, But how consciously we are willing to meet that need, how fully we will inhabit this moment of participation as it stretches forward into the unknown, inviting us to step just beyond what we understand, to linger in the space where insight is still forming, and to stay attentive as something subtle begins to shift again, signaling that the next layer of meaning is already approaching, waiting to be recognized as we remain engaged, present, and open to what is about to emerge next.